Hello.
And then old Boomy sits over here, and look at it, it's just ridiculous.
It's fine.
I've got to go down a little bit, at least. Oh, that's comfortable. Hello.
Hello.
We're back. It's been 9 years since we made a podcast.
Sorry. It's a bit of a funny term though, isn't it? It's like, late Easter, as everyone says, bank holidays.
Bank holidays and lots of Fridays off and other things to get ready and prep and things that happen. But we're back, and do you know what I realised that I made? I said I made a little podcast last week that just said like, hey, we've not been away. I looked on the podcast distribution page. It never went anywhere, so no one heard that last year. So nobody knows what we're talking about today.
Okay, right.
Which in some ways is good. In some ways, I guess people can go and look it up. So we're going to have a talk about. It's not necessarily a book review, I guess. It's like a concept review and chat. The book is Essentialism, and I've also.
Can you remember who it's by?
I want to say Cal Newport, but that could be wrong.
Okay.
I'll look it up. But we have. You've watched an interview.
I have.
With the man, and I've also read his other book, which has come out this year, which is Digital Minimalism, which is essentially the same thing. Essentially the same thing, but very much applying to the digital world and technology, and I sort of thought it would be interesting in two parts. One, to talk about like general practice and how we like approach the world, and then on the other hand, I think it does tie in nicely to that debate that comes up very often where people say, oh, what technology do you use in your, or they pick a thing and they pick a tool rather than a use. But anyway, we'll come back round to it. It is Cal Newport.
Memory, still working.
10 out of 10.
Still got it.
Yeah, can't put me in a home yet. So, you before we recorded, you were about to go, this is what I thought.
So I just watched the video quite late last night, and it was sort of like an intro, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To the concept of it, and I guess, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about the book and in more detail, because it just seems like real common sense. I was just like watching it kind of going, well, of course, and I wonder whether I was thinking, of course, because of like my age and my job, and therefore perhaps I think maybe I'm already doing a bit of what he's describing without thinking about it. But what I did find interesting was when he said, which you mentioned to me the other day, so the interviewer says, the whole thing is like, don't take on too much, isn't it? It's like be focused on like one thing at a time that is really essential to you, and be patient. So focus on one thing and be patient and wait for the right moment to do something. So he gave this example of like, I've got this book inside me that I really want to write this book, and I could have written it 2 years ago. If I'd done that, I would have screwed up my family, screwed up my other projects that I had on the go. But even though I was really passionate about it and it was completely aligned with my life and what I wanted to do and my end goal, if I had done it straight away, I would have. It was like a key time with my kids growing up and my partner and all the rest of it, and they would have suffered, and they would have been like, yeah, go for it, because I would have been like, I'm doing this great thing and I'm really excited about it, and everyone would have been pleased with me, but actually the end result would not have been good. And so I just waited for 2 years and then did it, and then that was the right time. And then the interviewer says, well, how do you say no to people when they come up to you and say, I've got this great project, I've got this great idea, and do you want to be on board? And it feels so great to say yes. How do you say no for the sake of your sanity, your family's sanity, and all the other projects that are important to you? And he didn't really answer it, but he did say, you're forgetting in a way that you're actually saying no all the time. So every time you look at Facebook, look at social media, watch some crappy TV, you're saying no to loads of other things. Like there's loads of options that you have available.
Opportunity cost, isn't it?
Yeah, to spend your time, and you're going no, I'm going to do this thing, and I thought that was a really helpful way of looking at it, because a lot of the time you see it as a passive choice, whereas actually it's an active choice to do that, and you don't have to do it, even though it's easy. It's still an active choice. So I thought that would definitely stay with me next time. Maybe I was like,
new project.
Yeah, or like I've got this time, I've got this evening. How do I really want to spend it? Because the easy choice is to watch another episode of RuPaul's Drag Race or Queer Eye, which is at the moment my chosen way to spend an evening after everyone's in bed. But you know, I could be getting out those other projects which are burning in the back of my mind, mostly makey projects, which I know would make me happier in the long run. So I thought that was interesting.
I think I know I can't remember whether he mentions this in the interview or not, or whether it's part of his books. But he does talk about this idea of having... Actually, I'm going to use the metaphor that he has, which is really nice. So he talks about Amish communities in America who, he said, the sort of stereotypical images, you know, ploughed fields and straw hats and very backwards. But he said if you actually go to a lot of these communities, they are running diesel generators or solar powered or solar panels or printing presses and things that were invented after whatever their cut-off is, 1850. There's some date that the Amish picked that they were like, right, whatever. And he talks about when someone invents a new technology or a new thing, and I guess in this metaphor that's the equivalent of a TV show coming in, and that choice coming to you of like, hey, Queer Eye's on Netflix. And in the Amish community, you get to use it for a little bit of time, for say 6 months, and then you have to present it to, it's got a name but I can't remember, I'm going to call it the Guggenfluben.
Like the Synod or whatever.
Yeah, and it's 5, I mean it's Amish, so it's 5 very elderly men who serve for life, and there's other issues going on with that. But they review the technology or the choice as it relates back to what they consider their key values and goals.
Yep.
So they analyse the technology in terms of, does this bring us closer to our families? Does this allow a greater happiness in our communities? And does this whatever else? And I think that's the way that I quite like thinking about, you know, options coming in. So when you sit down and you go, what shall I do or what shall I have here? And you go, right, well, it might be that Queer Eye fully nourishes your soul, and that means that you like are able to go and do something else. But to relate things back to, and it's a bit like we've talked about the business in a wider sense of going, if you've got a goal and an idea for your forest school and what you want it to look like, and then looking at almost all the number of people that I speak to who have birthday parties as that idea of like a necessary evil, and if you related it back to and go, what do you want your forest school to sort of achieve? And it's, I want it to achieve nature connection, or I want it to achieve better mental health for children, or I want it to do that, and sort of bringing things back and going, do birthday parties increase nature connection, or and I'm not saying they should be the same goals for everybody, and I think that's how I was thinking it ties very nicely into technology in forest school, because rather than thinking of it as like, I don't believe in smartphones, I think they're horrendous, you need to sort of see it as a tool and go, is there a place for this smartphone to increase nature connection or to do whatever, and weigh up all the benefits of it, of like, you can look stuff up, you can, you know, take pictures with them, you can do whatever, and you weigh it up against the risks that it hampers your values of like, it is a very short focus screen, it encourages shorter attention spans, and weighing up all those pros and cons rather than just going like,
blanket yes, blanket
no, and
that might be different for different children as well, mightn't it, and different groups,
and working out, well, okay, so the benefits that you want are the ability to look stuff up, and the say you want to look stuff up and you want a camera. Okay, there must be a way that you can set that tool up that it doesn't allow any other apps, or it's not connected to something. You know, you can go, well, how do we mitigate the downsides and just have that essential, this moves me forwards, or this moves the group forwards. And it also made me, so that's kind of the technology side of it, and it also made me think, going back to, because forest school is child-led, and in our setting we're very play-based, and I was thinking how being essential kind of relates back to a lot of how we plan and approach sessions. in my head, because I was thinking, what do we consider to be the essential thing?
Yeah.
And so if I considered it essential that children learnt about lichen and could go home thinking that that they knew the types of lichen and where they grew, you're going to end up with a very different session if you consider mental health to be the essential part, or if you consider their intrinsic motivation to be the essential part. And so, not saying that there should be the same essential thing for everybody, but that everybody should know what is essential to them. Does that
it
follow?
does. I think I was yesterday thinking about, I was making a kind of like wish list of new resources and equipment, and
I saw the list come through.
Yeah, and then and that kind of applies well to that, doesn't it? So if you're thinking, money is tight for everybody in forest school, probably. So when you're thinking about whether to invest in a new piece of kit or not, is it going to be something that is absolutely brilliant and really makes a huge difference to groups, and
to your value, and does it push your value further?
Exactly. Or is it going to be something that's expensive and a waste of time and gets dusty at the back of the cabin, and you think, oh, that was a shame, I wish I'd not bought that. And I guess that's quite a good checklist to go, okay, yeah, well, why do I want this, and does it?
I know, and he talks about he's involved in minimalism, which is sometimes confused with essentialism, but I think they are different things. And Cal talks in some places about things, their mental load.
Yeah.
So, but also, I guess in forest school, you could have physical load, where you could look at the kit that you take into schools with a real essentialist mindset and say, my values are that the children experience X, Y, and Z. And I'm sure most people could pare down the kit they take by 50%. I may well get kicked out of the Hoarders Facebook group for this, to say that we need less things, but
fewer things
that do more. Perhaps, that are more directly related to our values, and thinking that, okay, it might be so there's lots of people who, when they hear that we've got our own woodland that we own, go, I would love that, I would love to have my own site, but they don't equate it to the mental load of ownership and fear that it will be damaged and all those other things, and the mental load of maintaining woodland, and the same with equipment. You go, is that deck of, I don't know, bird identifying playing cards, does the value of that outweigh your mental load and time to maintain that resource, the weight that it takes up in your box?
Now your KonMari is like
well, I guess
they are with this,
but it's not. But this is more to do with utility towards your goals than sparking joy. Yeah. Because there are things, I would say, if it's utility towards your goals, the only things that spark joy are things that you go, this makes me happier, and so I can do a longer session. Yeah. If you know what I mean. This is a comfort for me, that allows me to. Do you know? I'm sort of veering here.
I think there can be stuff that sparks joy in terms of like it sparks play in a really.
But that's because play is one of our sort of strong values. You might have some settings where they go, the idea of sparking play is not necessarily my main goal, because I'm in a school that has to be curriculum linked, and so sparking free play isn't essential to my practice. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I think it was I was wondering whether it was I've been sort of chewing over in my mind this idea of, is it an accurate statement to say all forest school leaders should be essentialists? And I wondered whether you had thoughts on that.
Are you talking about like stuff, or are you talking about a way of like spending your time?
I think if I refer to it, if I'm thinking of it in the context of planning and delivering sessions and reflecting on sessions, whether essentialism, like you were saying, because of the job that you're in, you have sort of accidentally felt like you're doing essentialism. Yeah. Whether essentialism is something that all forest school, should. Yeah. If you were making a level 3 course, would you talk to people about essentialism in terms of planning?
I think I probably would, but I don't know if I'd use that term. Okay. But I think that in conversations we've had with our colleagues when they've been like taking on new things or kind of coming and saying, I've got this issue, and whenever we help, like talk with them through an issue, I'm just now thinking actually it usually does come back to essentialism. It's usually the answer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And a lot of the discussions on Facebook support groups it's about it's very hard, especially with forest school, working by yourself, as we always talk about. Like most people work by themselves. It can be a very lonely job, and you can get very focused on a very small thing, issue, problem.
Yeah.
And it's harder to step back and see the bigger picture and the end goal without somebody to bounce that idea back from all the time.
Yeah.
And I think probably you and I are. I'm really interested that you are so into essentialism, because you and I share a character trait, which is being impatient and taking on loads of stuff. So it's very healthy, I think, for us both to like talk about it. But it's helpful for, you know, if one of us comes and says, "I've got this great idea, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to like buy this thing, and I'm going to take on this new project," then the other one can go, "But why?
Yeah.
What's the end goal?
Yeah.
What's the end result?" And I guess giving a name to it, and
we're our own
actually
cynic of coming and saying, okay, well, how does this push forwards our values?
Yeah.
And,
I guess being aware of it as an actual theory and giving it a name makes it easier to access then in future to go.
Well, so Cal recommends putting your values somewhere very visible. So he says in the front of a, I mean, it's very tactile in terms of writing, but he says, have your values written on the first page of a moleskin notebook that you take everywhere with you, so that you can keep referring back to things, and it's always the page that you open and check in with first and go, these are my things. I was thinking, as you were saying then, how much when you're thinking about talking to other practitioners, how much essentialism would help. I mean, I'm going to get very capitalist here, but it would help branding, because reviewing the things that you take on in terms of, does this help? Does this align with my values? Is it essential to the values and sessions and life that I want to have? Frees you from going, I've got to push my toddler group and my home ed group and my birthday parties and my whatever else and my whatever else, and narrowing it down to, what is the value? The value, I mean, you might still do all those groups, but if the value is, I'm saying play because that's what we do, you can share that your value is play, and then let people, and then when people go, oh, I'm really interested in their play value, then they find you've got a toddler group and you've got a home ed group and you do birthday parties, but you've only had to push one thing, rather than saying, if you come to me for a birthday party, my values are this, and if you come to me for a toddler group, my values are this, and almost putting on all these different hats to try and please all these different people and different demographics, rather than going, it is
hard though. Sorry to jump in.
No,
in terms of like
that.
finances, isn't it?
It's
like,
100%.
So you know, the endless conversation, and we had it on Sunday with somebody about schools. You know, you go into schools and it's really hard because there's so many compromises you have to make, and it challenges your values, and you can't necessarily stick to your values really truly
rigidly.
But then if you look at a different kind of value, you go, well, also my value is to give access to as many children as possible from whatever background, and school is really the only place where you're going to be able to do that, because in every other setting you're going to have to pay. So either school or preschool or kindergarten, we do. So how do you marry that? Those are two almost conflicting values in the circumstance of that school. So
it's by no means easy. And I think hopefully taking on, maybe having the idea of essentialism in your head is then something that encourages you to have those discussions. If you work on your own, to have those discussions internally and say, you know, what is the essential thing to me? Is the essential thing access at all costs, or is the essential thing the high, you know, the style that I believe it to be? And I think that is, that's sometimes what I find when I'm talking to people, is they haven't quite nailed down in their own heads what is essential to them and their practice. And so,
well, I'd say it's taken us a long time.
Oh yeah, and I still don't think with that. And I think it will change. Like you were saying, Carol was talking about his book not being the right time. What is essential to you and I now with me having, well, soon to be 2 very young children, and your children starting school in 5 years' time, what is essential to our personal lives will be different, and that will affect what will be essential to the business, and will, but being in touch with that and being able to call things back and saying, it's a bit like we've talked before. So I listen to a podcast called Cortex, which is like a business and productivity one, and they talk about having year themes that you relate things back to. So there's a chap, the guy on there, CGP Grey, and he had the year of less, and then he had the year of less me, so he was offloading lots of things, and the year of organisation, so he was, and having, that's essentially, I said, oh God, that is essentialism, because he was picking one value and saying, for a period of time, I'm going to just relate everything back against this criteria that's important to me, rather than relating everything to all the possible criteria and doing everything else. And I think that was quite interesting. So I think it did kind of, as a collection of work. He's also got a book on time management that I would be quite interested to read. But it's definitely made me think a little bit more. People talk about on the business rather than in the business. It's made me think about. It's maybe helped me get into that higher plane of looking down at the business and going, how does this relate to what my values are at the moment?
And I think it's very helpful for mental health, because it's going to encourage you to be in the moment a lot more, isn't it? Because I think I'm guilty of, when I'm not working either here or on like admin, because when you're in business, there's just like admin just all the time, isn't there? And just like messages come in, and there's always something to be doing. And so if I'm at home with my kids and I'm not doing like cooking, putting them to bed, doing admin on the business, I'm just free basically to play with them. I don't often see that as a proactive choice. I often see that as like, I probably should be doing something. It's like, no, you are doing something. You are doing something. The thing you're doing is really important. In fact, it's probably the most important thing. And
because that's your value. So I've done the similar thing where I've been like dumbing down my phone and setting limits on it and putting it in grayscale, and all things that I realised that I was like, every time you get out your phone to look at Facebook, you are, like you said right at the start, making a choice of what you're doing. And sort of I found myself getting my phone, pulling it out while I was playing with my son, and going, is getting my phone out right now improving the value that I hold inside, I go, spending time with my son is important to me. Okay, is getting my phone out right now improving, aiding that value? No. Okay, it's not. So I'm going to put it away now, and there will be a time later when I go. And I've been surprised at how much you can block things into. Like you say, admin does feel like it comes in all the time. I've been timing myself and doing, saying half an hour is what I'm allowed to do. All my Facebook admin, all the email admin, and planning. I've not hit half an hour yet. No, I've not nailed down everything, because there's been some things that I've looked at and gone, that's going to take more than half an hour, and so I need to set more time aside for that. But I would be interested to see, how do the time compare, to getting my phone out every half an hour and going, there's an email, I'll reply to that now, and do all those bits add up to the same amount of time as 20 minutes? And even if they do, how does that change the fact that I was very present for the entire day? And then was able to go, I've done it now.
Exactly.
Mental
much more
load
healthy to do it in a block.
Blocked off.
I liked his idea of a buffer as well. We should probably stop talking in a minute, because it's kind of getting quite long. And I need a wee. But
and people are going to be here in a minute.
But I just like
nice.
the idea of the buffer. So you might go, I'm really, which I also do, and we also talk about this quite often. I go, do you know what? Everything's just ticking along really nicely right now. I feel like I just go to work, and then I come home and I cook the tea and I spend my time with my kids, and I don't do anything else. And I really need another project. I need a hobby. Like, I need to get out there and like join a choir or do something. And just when I'm about to go and actively search for this thing, this mythical hobby, something happens, and therefore there's suddenly loads more work to do, whether it be family-wise or business-wise or whatever. And then you're like, crikey, how on earth did I think I had time for like another project? And so he talks about just that buffer every day, and equates it to finances. So if you know you've got a grand in the bank, then as a buffer, then you feel much more relaxed about and choosy about what you spend your money on. And you can do it with time. So you've got to have a buffer every day or every week or whatever, because stuff happens out of the blue. And I thought that was very healthy.
Well, I think it might have been in the interview again. It might have been in his book where he's talking about things never take the time that you think, and things never cost the money that you think.
It's 3 times.
And so, I've heard people say different amounts. The biggest parallel I think is having kids. And when you go from my house, Taunton is half an hour away. Right. I've never with my son managed to leave the house and be in Taunton in half an hour, because it takes time to put him in the seat, because it takes then there's a bit of roadworks, and then then we need to stop because we need to get some food on the way, or I needed to change him because he went to the toilet. And just if you somebody said once, I watched a video on why people are late, and they said if Google Maps says that your commute is 20 minutes away and you leave 20 minutes before you need to get there, you're an asshole. And it's that thing, isn't it, of like, we look at Google Maps and we go, that says 20 minutes, I better leave half an hour. But we don't go, my day is planned to 18 hours, 16 hours, and I'm going to sleep for 8. And then you go, well, I'm going to fill 16 hours. No, fill 10. And then if you don't fill those other 6, he talks about high quality leisure quite a lot. And saying that actually you are happier if you make, how much time does your brain get to have its own thoughts or to work with your hands and but anyway, that's a different topic.
I would just relate that back to forest school very quickly and say that in your planning, having a buffer,
oh my god,
it's one thing that you think is going to be like a little 10-minute
firelighting is always activity. The one I find. Firelighting. Some days you suggest it. That's the rest. That could be a 6-hour day gone on firelighting, and then sometimes you get a group that go. We've all, even if they might not even light a fire, they go nah, and then go. And if you've buffered it out either way of like, I've not planned. I've got no ideas in my head. Okay, cool. You haven't got that £1,000
You're
left
just
to
ready.
spend.
You're ready to accept that nothing else will get done. That's the thing. It's not like, crikey, I've got to do this first step in this project so that we can do the next step next week. Don't plan that for a firelighting day. But conversely, have other stuff. And that's what
that's quite an interesting thing. You're saying you're ready, and I thought you were going to say you're ready to teach exactly that lesson, that session plan, and nothing else.
Right.
Which I think is true of people when they start. They plan a session and they go, I'm ready for that session. I'm ready for those 5 activities. Whereas I think the longer you do forest school and the more buffer you build up, the more you go, I'm ready for these 5, or I'm ready for 1, or I'm ready for 15, or I'm ready for, having that mental buffer and time buffer.
Yeah.
Do you want to go and do a wee?
Yes, please.
Okay, right.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll leave that there because it is getting a bit long. But it was good to be back. We'll talk to you all next week.
Bye!
Bye!